Hello, everybody. Welcome back. I'm Abby Hagyard. This is my tiny, very, very sunny corner of the world this morning. Cheers. Every so often, you say to yourself, I could probably just do one small thing and it would make everything feel just a little bit better. And I think the most fabulous thing you can do is something simple first thing in the morning, just a small thing, because then it kind of sets the tone. You're in that place, right? And so I've been doing a little bit of hot chocolate. I get this instant hot chocolate and I put a little in the coffee and it's amazing. And it's such a small, small thing, right? And I just saw a beautiful post on social media. Gorgeous, talented, lovely friend of mine who does interior decorating, and she's just amazing. And she was talking about the fact that we forget how easy our lives are most of the time. And she has a loved one who deals with a chronic situation and has his whole life. And she was saying, they complain, but they don't complain the way you would think they should and could. It's their normal, and they just find a way to navigate it. And that's the thing. We all find ways to navigate stuff, right? So I have a story about yesterday. I have two stories about yesterday, and it's all about navigating the things that kind of come up and give us a nudge or knock us off our chair or off our heels or whatnot, because we can allow them to get in the way. We can allow them to completely sour the day. Why? Because well, they startled us and they were inconvenient and we felt stupid and it took time and blah 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 blah. And poor me, poor me. And meanwhile, there are people with issues, like issues. And I don't mean that ours aren't. It's just that there's, when you've been on a diet and you're wearing a smaller size clothes, you feel pretty smug, don't you? Well, we should feel pretty smug if our issues are small, right? If I've gotten rid of the extra large issue and I'm down to a medium small, normally I'd be walking around saying, but we're saying, well, yes, I am feeling better. It's just that what? If you're feeling better, hooray, right? I mean, it's a beautiful here right now outside my window. It's gorgeous. There's not a lot of breeze. The sun is bright in a blue sky. The streets and the roads are dry. It's warm. It's not balmy, but it's warm for this time of year. It's fabulous. Yeah. And tomorrow we're getting freezing rain and snow for the rest of the week. So I'm leaning into the small mercies. I don't need to think about it. We can have that wait, right? So hang on a second. I need another sip of this. Now, one of the things that I decided to do recently, I'm simulcast through a program called Restream. So I have a LinkedIn page, and I have, of course, Facebook, and I have, of course, YouTube, and I have Instagram, and I have Twitch. And so it's broadcast simultaneously. But then I was looking at LinkedIn, and I said to myself, do I know that I have closed captions on? Good morning, Susan. In fact, I don't know how to turn them off. So yes. Thank you, beauty. So anyway, I was thinking, you know what? All these hardworking, working businessy types on LinkedIn, perhaps I should be reaching out. So I'm also going back and I'm reposting on LinkedIn. And in fact, I'm getting a lot of feedback from that, because business types are people wearing two hats, like Susan. Good morning, my beauty. Susan is a businesswoman. Susan owns her business. Susan is a dear friend, client, collaborator. She's also a single mom. She's got beautiful kids, and she's got a life, and she's got friends, and she's got a mom who makes her crazy. So her issues are my issues, are our issues. And she has this hat that she wears. She's a CEO. And I was thinking, when I started double posting into LinkedIn, people who take on that extra life, they become the caregiver in the family. They're homeschooling or something. They're wearing more hats than some of us. And I thought it's valuable to talk about that, to talk about the fact that I'm still Abby. I'm still the girl who secretly thinks that the toaster and the microwave talk to each other. Obviously, it's in some kind of code because they couldn't possibly be speaking the same language. But I'm a business owner. I have clients, and I hopefully make changes for them, with them, in their lives and in their creative stuff. So the object of the exercise with these videos is partly because of the Pivotry in Motion project, partly because, well, I'm a mom and I'm hoping you're all right, and partly because I'm a fellow business owner. And I know from personal experience, decades and decades and decades, I know that I have issues that become other issues, because if it's affecting one part of me, it's affecting all parts of me. So for those of you who are thinking, oh, this is just personal stuff. No, no, no. Everything is personal. Business is personal. Show business is personal. Oh, it's what is it doing? It's blocking my beautiful face. Well, we'll have to figure out how to turn that off then, won't we? Thank you, love. So what I want to talk about today was the weekend, because for those of us who deal with daylight savings time, need I say more? It's funny, dogs and cats and birds and weasels and alligators, they don't care about time. It's light or it's dark, it's warm or it's cold, and by the way, where's lunch? Really? That's their whole thing? Okay. Us, on the other hand, the people with the clever brains, we're running around saying, oh my God, what time is it? Really? It's time to stop saying that. So here was what happened on the weekend. What happened on the weekend was that time of year for the daylight savings folk who have to push the clocks forward ahead an hour. So if it's your phone and it's all connected to the computer does it, but everything else doesn't do it. So you're walking around thinking, oh my God, oh no, right? And so that takes a while. And sometimes we all do it, maybe Saturday night before we go to bed. Other times we forget. We're walking around Sunday and we suddenly see, oh, and we spend the whole day dealing with it. And then I was talking to Maggie yesterday, and I said, how's it going? And she said, it's up to you. Michael, what? Who's it up to? Closed caption at the bottom of the video frame is a box with a CC. It's tap that button. Is it me? Michael, you're talking to me or Susan? I'm getting a tech support here. So here's the thing. I thought of it about 3 years ago. So I'm feeling remarkably smug. Remember, I thought of it 3 years ago. Okay. And people joke about it. The thing is, people joke about it and they don't do it. Good morning, Michael. So here's the thing. You don't have to wait. You don't have to wait till Saturday night to do it or Sunday morning to do it. Why are you waiting till Sunday? Here's what I do. Thought of it 3 years ago. It was Friday, before that dreaded weekend. And I wasn't going anywhere Friday night that night. And I didn't really have any significant plans for Saturday. So, as the joke goes, why isn't daylight savings time? Push it forward at 4 o'clock on Friday so we can all leave early. Okay, right? So what I did was, while I was getting dinner ready, I pushed the clocks forward. And I forgot about it, and I went to bed a little earlier, and I woke up Saturday morning and I just went about my day, and I didn't have anything. Wasn't meeting up with anybody. I admit I was a little confused when I looked at my cell phone and when I looked at the computer, but you know what? Oh, well, I'm here. Nobody I had to get together with. Nobody who was going to be discombobulated by me being early although that would throw almost everybody for a loop, right? And then I did it again last year. I did it in the spring and I did it in the fall. And I thought, this is genius, right? If you have nothing of significance, I mean, if you're working Saturday, okay, but if you have nothing of significance to do it Friday. Do the joke. Because I'll tell you, half a dozen people that I bumped into yesterday, they're all walking around like somebody hit them behind the ear with a weighted sock. Because everybody's, I can't get over the time thing. And I thought, there we go. So this is, and how do you do it? As I said, it's the weekend. It's the weekend. The rules are different on the weekend, unless, of course, you happen to be somebody who works Saturday, in which case I apologize. Even so, at 4 o'clock on Saturday, do it. You don't need to be held hostage to this conceit we've created so that we can all be at the same place at the same time. We can all predict when everybody's going to show up. But we don't have to be around the throat controlling it. And so, huzzah. When I did it that first time, I was annoyingly smug. And I didn't have any plans, so I was just all smug by myself. And the thing is, I moved 3 years ago, right? And so here I am in this beautiful new place. And everything, I had a lot of stuff that I left behind. And so a lot of my stuff, my normal stuff was new. But I had a few familiar favorites that I could look at and say, yes, it's still me and we're still here and we made it, kind of thing. And what I was able to do in the newness of the move was say, this is my new policy. And then I didn't really mention it because I was busy, right? You're moving, my God. Maggie moved and she said, I'm almost unpacked. And I said, it's been 2 days. How many things do you own? 5? She said, no. And I said, well, I don't know how you did that. And she said, oh, I just, pretty organized. Holy cow. Good morning, Charles. Good morning. And so it's a weird thing. You love my place. Oh, Charles, thank you. It really is beautiful, especially with the sun shining. Next time you and Kat come, wouldn't it be swell if the sun was shining at least for 5 minutes on the time you're here? Poor Charles and Kat came up all the way to visit. It rained the whole time. They came in the fall to see the changing of the leaves, and they were changing. They were also soaking wet. So back to this whole business about daylight savings. It's part of a bigger conversation, right? And I want to dive into it because I was out yesterday and there's a lot of stress going on. So we're going to get snow. We're going to get freezing rain late tonight, early-ish tomorrow. We're supposed to get a fair dumping of it. And then it's going to drop and we'll get some snow and then rain again. And it's that time of year. I mean, if we weren't inconvenienced by the weather, we would be thrilled because Canada, this part of Canada, maple syrup, Canadian maple syrup. And so what you want the temperatures high and then low because that causes the trees to get that sap running. And the sap is what we suddenly miraculously turn into maple syrup. And we don't mind. We don't mind that the temperatures go up and down. What we would like is maybe not the stuff that's going to come with it this week, but what can you do? So in preparation for that extended event, I went and got groceries yesterday. 2 things happened. One was that it was very windy. And I have this big bag that I put all the other bags in. I take the big bag with me, and then when I buy the groceries, and we put everything in the bags, and then drag it onto a cart out to the car. Emptying the bags, I have this big bag, and the wind caught it and flipped it off the cart into the air. And I almost almost jumped for it. Oh, like I was, and I thought, no, 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 don't do that. Don't do that. Because what goes up? But it didn't. It just kept swirling around. Then there were two other small bags, and now I felt a little bit like Dorothy in the Land of Oz. And I was, and it was heading off, and I thought, and I was going to chase it. I was, and then I thought, cart, purse, groceries, keys, open car, no. And I stopped, but I was there. I was doing it, right? I was on my way, and I stopped. And I'm further to the car, and there's a chap who is incapacitated. He's sometimes in a walker, sometimes in a wheelchair, and there he was. And I've met him a few times, and he says, if you can spare anything, Abby, I'd appreciate it. And so I said, it's good to see you. It's good you're out getting some sunshine. And he said, yeah. He said, I needed that because my girlfriend died a little while ago. And I said, oh, I'm so sorry, hon. And so we chit-chatted about that. And he said, most of the time when somebody like me is out, people just don't even acknowledge that I'm here. I ask, I'm polite, and I realize that everybody's hurting, and he said sometimes they're rude. And he said, you always stop and talk. And I said, well, Daniel, why wouldn't I stop and talk? We're all people. Some of us are just at different stages. And I was rummaging around, and what I usually do is I make sure I have something cash in case I see him, And so it was in my purse. He said, I saw you running. I saw you trying to run and jump. And he said, I'd have given anything if I could have been able to get out of my chair and run and jump for you. And I said, I would have given anything to see you do that. And he was smiling. And then he kind of stopped and he said, it's the first time I've smiled. Thank you. So, right. And I said, and now you hate to bring it up, bud? And he said, yeah. And I said, I got you covered. And because I had it in my pocket instead of in my purse, I thought, if I see him, I want to have it ready. And he said, oh, Abby, thank you. This means a lot. And I said, if I can, I should. And he said, thank you. Anyway, then he wheeled off, and I'm loading stuff in the car, in the trunk. And I turn around, and there's a woman standing right there. And I went, ah! Because, Vikings are good at surprises, right? And so she said, I've been standing here for a couple of seconds, and I didn't know whether to say anything or not, because I didn't want that to happen. I'm so sorry. And I said, no, it's fine. It's fine. I just kind of in the zone here with the bags. And she said, speaking of bags, she pulled her hand out from behind her back, and she had rescued my shopping bags. And I said, what? And she said, I saw it take off. I saw you about to jump. And then I saw you deciding to run or not, but you had all your stuff. And she said, you know what? I was going to go to the gym, and now I don't have to. I said, where did you get them? And she said, oh, well, they were up against the fence at the far end of the, I said, at the far end of the, you went all that way? And she said, yeah, it was okay. It's a beautiful day. And she said, anyway, here. And she said, I was watching you with that guy. She said, you probably make his day. And I said, well, you made mine. And she said, it's great, isn't it? I said, it is. And anyway, I thanked her, and she headed off, and I got in the car, and I thought, all righty then, that whatever that just was is the stuff. It's the, when you get the donut with the stuff inside, this is the stuff. So here we are, grumping and complaining about daylight savings. And here we are grumping and complaining about some lunatic fringe someplace else doing something absolutely crazy. And then all of a sudden, that simple, normal, very, very small human stuff, the origin of our species, right? And, I came home, and just many trips to get the stuff up the stairs. And when I came home, I was so preoccupied by it. I'm in a 2-car slot inside a, indoor in-ground parking. and to the left of me, there is a gray SUV, right? So I'm driving in thinking what a beautiful day it is. And I'm driving in and I round around and I'm down on my floor. And there's the gray SUV and I pull in beside it. And I think, what a great day. And I get out of the car and directly behind me in the other two, there's a car that I know the people who own it, lovely couple, little kids. And I'm thinking, well, but why are they parked there? Because normally they're parked one over. And so he's getting out of the car and I said, why are you parked there? And he said, because that's my parking spot, Hattie. And I said, and he said, my question is, why are you parked there when your parking spot is the next one over? And I looked at him and I turned, and sure enough, boys and girls, there's an empty spot and another gray SUV. And I said, it's these gray SUVs. He said, I know, they're going to take over the world. I'm back in the car, pull out, pull in, get my groceries. As I'm getting my groceries, and he and I are talking, and the wife and the kids are talking, the owner of the car that parks beside that other gray SUV comes in and pulls in. You see, if I had pulled in, parked, got my groceries, and left, not noticed, there would have been no end of confusion. It would have been an hour's worth of, well, how, and then she, and right? But because we're distracted, because we're not paying attention. But when we are paying attention to each other, these incredible, small, sweet things happen. So this lovely couple and their kids waited while I loaded everything to the cart. And we all walked together to the elevator. He held the door for me and I dragged my cart in and we're talking and the kids are talking and chit-chatting and the little kids are all this, get in the elevator and she says, and which floor is it, Miss Abby? And I said, it's 15. And she said, thank you. And she pushes the button. This is small stuff. This is just the smallest stuff, right? And people say, don't sweat the small stuff. And they're right. If it's a small annoyance, they're right. If it's a small, simple win, for heaven's sake, hug the small stuff. It's a gift. I got home and I thought, I can't, up and down, up and down. And yes, it's going to be dreck weather for the rest of the week. I'm not going out in it. I'm going to stay in, make my plans accordingly. So while we are navigating fairly choppy waters, and I swear to you, I'm not being a Pollyanna. Susan will vouch. Susan will vouch in all the years. Good morning, Freddie. Brain fog is huge right now. Yes, it is. And there's a reason for it. And it's focus. Susan will vouch for the fact that of all the things I am, a Pollyanna is not any of the top 36. When I say it's a great day, it's because it is turning out to be a great day. If it's not a great day, the entire world gets to know about it. And so when I'm doing these posts, it is for us, for our inner child, for the person we are every day becoming, and it's for the hats we wear. Susan has a million more hats than I do. At the same time, we both wear a similar hat. It's called CEO. I own a business. She owns a business. The business depends on us. If we take care of the business takes care of us. So if Abby is having a difficult day, if inner child Abby is having a difficult day, if Viking Abby is having a difficult day, then corporate Abby is going to have a correspondingly difficult day because we're all connected on the inside, right? We are allowed to say, I'm going to need a minute. And I want to tell you who told me that, who taught me that. It was Maggie, because I had said, I've created something, Susan works with it, uses it. I call it the now what time scheduler. And you write down the stuff that you do during the day. I don't mean individually things, but, get up, clean the house, commute to work, whatever it is. And then when you have something new, you put in a slot for it, the new thing, because we don't give ourselves time. We don't budget our time for the new things. Some of that contributes to the brain fog that Susan brought up. If we do recognize it and we put it in and say, I'm going to put an hour every day for this new thing, all of a sudden, we're not wondering where the time went. We're not blaming and shaming ourselves that we can't take control of anything. We're saying, oh, that's right. Yeah, I did that. Okay. Then it all makes sense. Maggie's genius was, I said, and you can put in time between, you can say breathing time. This is when we were first getting started in her work, right? And she said, how much can I have? And I said, well, it's your time. You don't have to get permission. Just identify it so that it's a set aside. So she was moving. She was changing some stuff in her work. And we're starting this career path for her. And she said, I made an executive decision. And it's maybe the smartest thing I've ever done. And I said, what is that? She said, I make myself take 10 minutes. I said, good for you. And she said, whatever it is I'm doing, and I'm done, maybe the dishes, or I made dinner, or I finished this project, or I got off that call. I make myself, I have a time, I make myself give me 10 minutes. And I don't look at my phone, and I don't check the computer, and I don't fold the laundry. I literally just close my eyes and breathe. I don't even review back what I was doing. I do the 5-finger exercise. I just give myself time. And she said, you have no idea. You have no idea the difference it made. Like immediately, like within a couple of hours, I felt like I wasn't cramming too much into my thinking, into my gotta do. She said, everything just kind of settled. And she said, and so, where I made up the time that I used up, I spent less time on my screen. I spent less time scrolling. I looked at the clock and said, oh, well, it's this time. And I had not done, good morning, I'm talking about you. Good morning, Rhea. Yeah, it is definitely, Charles, don't cry over spilled milk. The whole thing about the small stuff has a place. And it's there for a reason. We may not see it, and we don't need to stand there and say, why did that happen? Just do it. And eventually the dots will connect. It's that whole can't see the forest because I'm standing right here in front of the tree, right? So as a business owner whose business is tapping people on the shoulder and saying, path's over there. And they go, oh, thanks. Navigation are us. It is my job to give me time to shift gears, the way Maggie does, the way Susan does when she meditates, the way all of us do when we use whatever that habit is. So I've jumped all over the place today, and all it started with was, good morning, you're sorry you got pulled into a meeting. Now, are you sorry to me, or are you sorry you got pulled into a meeting? Inside joke. Everything is so easy when we stop overcomplicating it. I'm gonna pull this together, quoting one of my beautiful, wonderful, magical, talented TV kids. Alistair Gillis said to me not that long ago, when his people were going through something. He said, it's difficult because life is a whole lot easier than we allow it to be. We're the ones that wind it up and wrap it up and get all bent out of shape over it. And we just need somebody to give us a good shake. And I hadn't seen him in a long time. And I said, oh, well, sweetheart, I'm right here. And I took him over the shoulders and I went, look. And he said, it's so important to celebrate the simple win. So you've had my stories, right, today. You've had my all over the map stories. And the simple win is this. The time we take to look after us is not time wasted. It is time well spent when the outcome is feeling settled, grounded, respected, seen, heard, valued, loved. If we come away from a self-care bit of time and we feel like we matter, then every next thing we're going to do for the rest of the day is going to receive that from us. I was talking with somebody the other day who said, oh, so you do this energy stuff? And I said, no, we all do the energy stuff. I'm just mentioning it. She said, I don't know whether I believe in that. And I said, well, you don't have to. You don't have to believe in it. It just is. And I said, do you ever feel wonky when there's a full moon? And she said, oh my God. And I said, that's the energy. It's magnetic force. We're a little bit magnetic. So if the magnet is not working right, we feel a bit off. That's not what I do, but it's certainly something that I'm aware of. And she said, what do you do? And I said, I remind people that we're all connected. And she said, oh, that stuff. And I said, there's a forest. I forget which US state it's in. One of you Yanks can tell me which one it is. There's a state out west that has, I don't know, hundreds of hectares of forest, and underneath it, it's a protected area. It's a mushroom community, not weird mushrooms, just mushrooms. And it's the largest one that anybody has found, recognized, noted, and said, and we're going to call it, I don't know, Henry. And the thing is that it's hundreds of hectares, but they're all connected under, right? They're all connected this way. They're connected to the trees. They're connected to everything. And I was saying to this woman, just because we don't know we're connected doesn't mean we're not. I said, we could be mushrooms. There could be a species that thinks of us as mushrooms. We don't know. But I do know that when I'm with people who just have that kind of Shazam, that's a connection. And it's bigger than physical. And when, it's happened to you, right? Somebody has said something and you've laughed really hard, and so have they. And so do two other people. And in the moment when you're all laughing hard at this very funny thing, you're connected. Everybody's sharing that energy, right? And if that's all it is, that's okay. That's brilliant. If I'm walking around and I'm pulling all the other mushrooms with me because all of our roots are connected, that's awkward and inconvenient. But if the energy's working, and when you get on or off an elevator and there's tension, you can feel it and you kind of end up wearing it. So Susan is in the business of massaging that out of you. And Maggie's in the business of alerting people to the fact that they've left their back doors open. We're all in the business of making it easier to enjoy the simple wins. All of us. Ray is doing it. Charles is doing it. We're all doing it. Because, oh, Miss Marnie, good morning. Marnie's doing it. We're all in the business of making it a little easier to say, thanks, because that's how we ride the breaking waves. That's how we have the strength to deal with that stuff. And that's what my project, that's what my career, that's what my mummification of the entire globe was and is all about. So with that said, my fellow CEOs and multi-hat wearers, I'm gonna enjoy this day today because stuff's coming, and I hope you do too. So take your 10 minutes when you can. Give yourself permission to breathe. Learn from all these smart people that I'm surrounding myself with, including you, and be good to you. You deserve it. Remember to hug your loved ones. Why? Because they deserve it too. Thank you for watching. Thank you for telling your friends. Thank you for making this a part of your day. Be very funny, Maggie, if you said the next time you're pulled into a meeting, I can't come to the meeting. Abby's doing a video. Who's Abby? All right, gang. I will catch you next time.